Okay, so digital well-being. It's everywhere we turn these days, right?
It really is. It's like the buzzword of the decade.
But for good reason, don't you think? I mean, we're all kind of grappling with this whole tech takeover thing.
Absolutely. Finding that balance is, well, it's a challenge.
It is. And who better to weigh in on this than Google? I mean, talk about a tech giant.
Right. They practically wrote the book on our digital lives.
Exactly. So we're diving into one of their recent articles. It's called Digital Well-Being Through Technology. Catchy, right?
It's kind of ironic, isn't it?
Totally. It's like, can a company that thrives on our screen time actually help us, unplug?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is. But you know what I find interesting? Google's approach is actually pretty self-aware.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Like, they don't sugarcoat it. They acknowledge that tech can be a slippery slope if we're not careful.
It's refreshing to hear that from, well, Google.
Totally. So they start by posing this question, and I love this. They ask, what does your current experience with technology look like?
It makes you stop and think.
Right. It's like holding up a mirror to your digital habits. Are you glued to your phone 24/7? Do you feel that phantom buzz in your pocket even when it's not there?
Yeah, we've all been there.
Exactly. And it's that awareness, that self-reflection that Google emphasizes as the first step.
Makes sense. You can't change what you don't acknowledge.
Exactly. And from there, they break down digital well-being into 4, I guess you could call them, focus areas.
Okay, I like it. Break it down for us.
So we've got focusing your time with tech, unplugging more often, minimizing distractions, and then the big one, finding balance as a family.
It's interesting they included that last one, family. It shows they're thinking about the bigger picture.
Totally. Because, let's face it, kids and tech, it's a whole other ballgame. But let's circle back to that later because I kind of want to go through each of these areas one by one.
Sounds good to me.
So focusing your time. One of Google's tips here is setting daily limits on apps. Have you tried this?
I have, actually. I'm kind of ashamed to admit how much time I was wasting on certain apps. But seeing that timer, it really does make a difference.
It's that little nudge.
It's the reality check. You realize you've been scrolling for, like, an hour.
An hour. Try 2. Okay, so what about unplugging? I feel like this is a tough one for a lot of people.
It really is. We're so conditioned to be constantly connected. But Google suggests something so simple. Turning off non-essential notifications.
I never thought about it that way. Non-essential.
Right. Like, does that random game on your phone really need to interrupt your train of thought?
So true. And yet we put up with it all day long. Ding, buzz.
It's exhausting when you think about it.
It is. Which brings us to the next area, minimizing distractions. This one's huge.
It's huge because it's everywhere.
Everywhere. And Google suggests creating what they call tech-free zones at home.
I love that. Like the dinner table.
Exactly.
Or the bedroom. Remember when phones used to stay plugged in on the wall?
Vaguely.
It's like we've forgotten the art of being present in the moment and the art of conversation. Remember that?
Right, like actual face-to-face conversation.
Imagine that.
Crazy, right? Okay, and now for the big one. Families. This one feels like navigating a minefield.
It does. And the stakes are high. We want to raise kids who are tech-savvy but not tech-dependent.
Exactly. And Google offers some tools here, like Family Link. Have you heard of this?
I have. It's an app that lets parents set screen time limits, block apps, that kind of thing.
It's like parental controls on steroids.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And, it can be controversial.
How so?
Well, some people see it as like invading their kids' privacy.
Oh, I can see that.
But others argue that, hey, kids need boundaries, especially in the digital world.
Right, because left to their own devices.
They probably never log off.
Exactly. It's a tough one. And I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all answer. Every family has to figure out what works for them.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the bigger picture, right?
It does.
Google can give us these tools, these frameworks for digital well-being, but ultimately, it's up to us to decide how we use them.
We're in the driver's seat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a powerful realization.
It is. It is. It's like Google might have inadvertently created this like digital dependence, but they're also acknowledging it. And they're giving us ways to break free. It's kind of a trip when you think about it.
It is a trip, but maybe that's the point. To make us think, to make us question.
Yeah.
Because it's in that questioning that we can start to make more conscious choices.
So true. So where do we go from here? What's the takeaway?
Well, maybe instead of just passively consuming technology, we start actively engaging with it. Question it. Challenge it. Set boundaries.
Boundaries are good.
And most importantly, be kind to yourself.
Yes. Because this digital well-being journey, it's not a sprint. It's a marathon.
And we're all in this together.
We are. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go turn off my notifications.
You too?